For this question, we're finding perimeter. We need to find the length of all the sides. So we have three sides in this figure. We have P to Q, which is the easiest side to find because we can just count the blocks. This is 3 units long. So there's not really any work to show for P to Q. Okay, then we have to find the other sides. So if we go from Q to R, this distance, we have to make a little triangle like we talked about so that we can do Pythagorean theorem. We have 1 here and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So that's our A and our B. So we can do 1 squared plus 5 squared equals C squared. So 1 plus 25 equals C squared. So 26 is C squared, and then you have to take the square root of 26 to get C. When you take the square root on your calculator, the directions say that we're rounding to 1 decimal place, so this is going to round to 5.1. Okay, if you had done distance formula instead, which we had talked about, that was an option, and you picked this as x1, y1, x2, y2, and you did the formula, you would have had 1 minus 2 squared and negative 1 minus 4 squared, and then you would have had negative 1 squared plus negative 5 squared, which is 1 plus 25, which is the square root of 26. So you could have done it either way. All right, then for PR, we'll go back to the picture. You can make a triangle. This distance is 2, and this distance is 5, so that's our A and our B. So this was for PR. We're going to do 2 squared plus 5 squared equals C squared. So 4 plus 25 is equal to C squared. So 29 is C squared. And then take the square root of 29 to get C. When we take the square root of 29, it rounds to 5.4. If you had done the distance formula, we could have kept these as x2, y2, this is x1, y1, and we could have plugged all this into the formula. It would have been 1 minus negative 1 squared and negative 1 minus 4 squared. This gives us 2, and this gives us negative 5. And then when we square them, we have 4 plus 25, which is the square root of 29. So either way, you're getting the same answer. When we do our perimeter, we're adding up our 3 values. So we've got 3, 5.1, and 5.4 that we're adding together to get our total, which gives us 13.5. All right, next one. For naming the angle, it says use 3 methods. So B is our vertex, so we could call this angle angle B. You have to have the angle symbol there, and you have to use a capital letter. We could also call it angle ABC. B has to be in the middle, or we could call it CBA. There's no number on this one, so we can't use a number. Number 3 says the measure of angle VUW. So VUW is this angle inside here. It's 22 degrees. And VUT is the big angle. That's 40 degrees. What is the measure of WUT? So this is the angle that we're trying to figure out. This is what we don't know. So that's like our X. So if we know the big one, we take away the little one that we know to get the missing angle. So we're just doing 40 minus 22, which equals 18. Classify the angles means say if it's acute, right, obtuse, or straight. So ABC is definitely acute. It's smaller than 90 degrees. PQR is obtuse. It's definitely larger than 90 degrees. LMN is a straight line, so it is a straight angle. And FGH is going to be our right angle Some people put supplementary for LMN. Supplementary is you have to have two angles that add up to 180. It's not just one angle that's 180. Same thing with this one. Some people put complementary. It's not complementary because complementary, you need two angles that add up to 90. All right, on the back, PQR, so this big angle is 102. Find PQS. So that means these two smaller angles add up to the total for the big angle. When we add these together, we're combining like terms. So our like terms, we're going to put the terms that have x's together. So a positive 7 and a positive 9 make a positive 16. And then a negative 5 and a positive 11 make a positive 6. And now from here, we're going to solve. So minus 6 from both sides. When we subtract 6 from both sides, that leaves us with 16x is equal to 96. And then we divide by 16 on both sides to get x is equal to 6. Okay, that's not where we stop because we have to find our angle measurements. So now we have to plug this back in. So PQS is 7 times 6 minus 5, which is 42 minus 5, which gives us a total of 37. SQR is 9 times 6 plus 11, which gives us 54 plus 11, which gives us 65. Right, number 6. For this one, if we're naming angles, we know our angles have to start with an angle symbol. So every single one of these needs to start with an angle symbol. Name a pair, which means I need to name two that are adjacent. Adjacent means they share a side and they share a vertex. This is the only shared side and shared vertex in this diagram. Nothing is shared with this angle, nothing is shared with this angle. So we have DEG, and you could have named it GED, right, as long as E was in the middle, and GEF or FEG, as long as E was in the middle. These are our adjacent angles. Complementary, they have to add up to 90. So I have to pick the two angles that make 90 together. So you'd have to go through your choices and add them up. So we get 28 and 62 make 90. So these are our complementary angles. I could name this angle angle B because B is not shared anywhere. I could also name it angle ABC or CBA. This angle, I have to use 3 letters. I can't just call it E because E is shared between 3 different angles in this picture. So I would call this GEF or FEG. Some people made a mistake and put these two together as complementary, but that adds up to 100 degrees. So just be careful about that. Next, we need supplementary. Supplementary means they have to add up to 180. So we have to pick the two that add up to 180. So if we do 72 plus 108, that gives us 180. So it's going to be these two angles. I can call this angle angle J because this vertex isn't shared by any other angle, or I could call it HJK or KJH. This angle, E, is shared in more than one angle, so I have to use 3 letters. So I'm going to call it DEG or GED. Number 7, identify at least 2 sets of linear pairs. There's 4 sets in this picture. Linear pairs make a straight line. So I could look at 3 and 4, could be one example. I could look at 5 and 6 as another example. I could look at 4 and 6, or I can look at 3 and 5. Some people put 4 and 5. Those are not a linear pair. They don't share sides. And some people put 3 and 6. Those are not linear pairs. They're what we learned yesterday, which was vertical angles. Number 8, A is a complement of B. Complement tells us we're going to be using 90 degrees. Measure of angle A is 42. So if A plus B is supposed to equal 90, A is 42, I would figure out B by subtracting 42 from each side. So that's going to give me 48 for B. Angle C is a linear pair. Linear pair tells us they're supplementary, which means 180. So C plus D should equal 180, and we know D is 75. So now we just subtract 75 from both sides, and we get C is 105. Last question. We have two angles are supplementary. That tells us they add up to 180. The measure of one angle is 8 times the measure of the other angle. So if I call one angle X, the other angle is 8 times X, and they have to make 180 total. So we put these together to get 9x, because remember there's really a 1 in front of here. Divide both sides by 9, and I get x is 20. So one angle is 20 degrees. The other angle is 8 times 20, so it's 160 degrees. The most common mistake with this question was we just said 8x equals 180, and when you divided, you got 22.5, but that didn't take into account that there was another angle here. So you have to make sure you have an angle you start with and the angle that's 8 times it.